As somebody with dyslexia and ADHD, I could not write anything remotely eloquent if I didn't use technology. As a result, I've taught my children and my students how to use technology to write better essays to get higher grades. However, using technology does not guarantee success, and too often I've seen students make silly mistakes that I want to warn you about now. So in this video, I'm going to share some common mistakes I've seen students make when using technology to write essays, and also I'm going to warn parents and teachers of some dangers that stop students taking advantage of this technology. Now, this all sounds very negative for somebody who's got a whole YouTube channel about using technology to get higher grades. If helping students get better grades is something that interests you, I suggest you subscribe and then hit the bell button and you'll be informed when I create new videos. Before creating this video, I created this video, which shows how to use technology to write better essays and get better grades. This video is a continuation, so it might be worth watching that first. Now let's have a look at the mistakes students make that stop them getting better grades. In my earlier video, I've explained this slide. These are the steps that students could go through or should go through to create an essay. This is how technology can help, and now I'm just going to talk about how I've seen technology hinder. When it comes to using text-to-speech to understand the question, I don't see any pitfalls there. It's just fantastic functionality that anyone could benefit from. But when it comes to taking class notes, once the student can type, they assume that they should always type their notes in class. And while for some students this might be a good idea, research has shown that when students type their notes, they're more likely to concentrate on creating good notes rather than listening and understanding the lesson. And really, it's far more important that a student is engaged in the lesson than they type brilliant notes. I personally type very fast, but when I am in a lecture learning new information, I always write my notes. I find that far more beneficial, but there is a personal preference. So I'm not saying students should never type their notes, but I think they should not assume it's the best thing to do. I have a separate video that explores better note-taking techniques in class that would be worth checking out. The next thing that I found really hinders students is really shocking. And that is spell check kills the thought process and the flow of ideas. So in this stage where students are writing down all the answers to the question that's been posed before they tidy it up and organize it, I find that students can have great ideas and they can be flowing, and once they see a word with a little squiggly line underneath, they completely stop what they're doing and they lose the flow and they don't get it back. So while I would never hand in a document without spell checking it, I would switch it off while I'm doing the initial brain dump of ideas and only switch it on later when I'm on this refine and finesse stage. And I will create a video to show you how to switch spell check off as you type. It's very, very easy to do. It's very quick. And it's very easy to then do it at a later stage. And then this might be the most important way that typing or dictating hinders students. What I have seen happen, and my own son did this a lot, is he would use text-to-speech to do research on the internet or on electronic textbooks. He would find something that remotely answered the question and he would cut and paste it into a Word document, put a heading on it, date it, print it out and hand it in without really understanding the answer, without making it his own thoughts, his own ideas. He just got rid of it as quickly as possible. He thought typing his work was great, but he could not have reproduced that in an exam. Therefore, it was a very, very unwise thing to do. And I've known of teachers tell students not to type their work because all they do is cut and paste and then hand in somebody else's work. So I warn my students all the time not to plagiarize or not to copy, and I would suggest all parents and teachers do the same. And then this text looks a strange text within the table, don't bother. But what I mean is, and this again happened with my son, the fact that we have all this great functionality at our fingertips where we can listen to our mistakes and we can do spelling and grammar checks and improve our vocabulary and ensure that we're using all the different parts of speech, even though this all exists, it doesn't mean that our students will use it. My son just didn't bother. He found school so exhausting and hated homework so much that even though this was available, he would never use it and he'd have to be encouraged to do so. Before I attempt to explain the dangers to parents and teachers, I want to try to explain this slide. Now, I must admit that this isn't based on empirical evidence, but just my own observations. Basically, the only axis that remains constant is this age of the student. So we've got young students to old students. And then I explore these different variables, their cooperation, their brain plasticity, pressure of work, and peer pressure. In the early years, the pressure of work from school is low. Their brain plasticity is high. It's easier to take on new skills. And they're very, very cooperative. They want to please. And as they get into secondary school, the peer pressure increases, the pressure of work increases. And I find with not all students, but with many students, their desire to cooperate with parents or teachers goes down considerably. And I have worked with many students around 14, 15 years of age who really resist using any of the functionality that I introduce them to, even though they could really benefit from it and it could make the difference in their grades of between a B and an A or even a B and a fail. But they will not do it because they do not want to be different to their friends. So I wanted to show you that first, and then I'm going to explain the dangers that I've seen with each of these steps that I want to pre-warn you about. So when it comes to understanding the question and using text-to-speech in research, there is no downside of using it, but you do need to introduce text-to-speech early. As time goes on, teenagers resist using it, they don't like it, they want to be the same as their friends. But if it's their normal way of working and they've been used to using it since primary school, then they normally carry on using it as they go through their teenage years. So introduce text-to-speech early, even if it's audiobooks, getting them used to listening, not just reading. Typing is amazingly beneficial for students, it really is. But if you start too early, before a child has dexterity, then it can really put them off and give them a very negative view of typing. But if you start too late, again, it's a lot of effort to learn to type. And if their friends aren't typing, they don't want to be different, then students just aren't prepared to put in the extra time. As timing is so important and the optimal age differs from student to student, I've created this video to try and help parents and teachers ascertain when the best time is to teach a child to touch type. And then when it comes to using all the other functionality, again, students just need an awful lot of encouragement to use it. Now we'll look at how technology could potentially hinder when students are taking exams. I think the most obvious one is if students type in exams, if they don't have a fast typing speed, they really are at a disadvantage. I remember debriefing after one student didn't get the GCSE grades that she expected, and we went through everything. She'd really revised, she knew her stuff, her exam technique was great, and then I realised the problem was she had very slow typing speed, and even though she had extra time, it was all used up by poor typing. So investing in becoming a quick and proficient typist is really, really worthwhile. Also, students mustn't be over-reliant on dictation if they cannot use it in exams, and far fewer students can dictate in exams than can type. Typing is a relatively easy access arrangement or reasonable adjustment to have in exams. Where students are listening to text or typing, they need to ensure they are familiar with the hardware that they are using. So that means they are familiar with the headphones and they are familiar with the keyboard, that they've used them in mock exams, so there are no surprises during the formal exams. When it comes to refining and finessing work, students are rarely allowed to use this functionality in exams. Students need to be aware of this and have had plenty of practice writing essays without this help under exam conditions. Now let's explore any dangers that parents and teachers need to be forewarned about. We talk about understanding the question, having a computer reader or an exam pen read the question aloud so students don't go off on a tangent. And what I would say is that is fantastic as long as the access arrangement is in place. You cannot assume that all schools will put a computer reader in for every student. Also, if it's not a student's normal way of working, it could be detrimental, because if they're not used to using a computer reader and it's just introduced to them just before they take a formal exam, it could be incredibly stressful and be more harm than good. So normal way of working is a term that's bandied around a lot when it comes to special needs students with access arrangements, but it is in the student's best interest for it to be their normal way of working, that they use it every day when they're doing homework, and they use it in the mock exams. The same is true when it comes to typing or dictation, but it really does have to be the student's normal way of working. If not, again, it could be a hindrance rather than a help. And again, being able to brainstorm, reorganize their work, correct it, they've got to have a lot of practice to make the best use of this functionality in exams. In the details below, I'll put some further information about access arrangements and computer readers in exams. I really hope you found this video helpful. If you have, please give it a thumbs up. This channel is all about helping learners achieve their potential. If that interests you, please subscribe, then hit the bell button so you'll be informed when I create new videos. I create lots of other helpful free resources. Some of them are depicted here. I will put a link on how you access these in the details below. Thanks for watching.